I suppose no one imagines telling the story of their own death. But if you're listening now, it means someone, somewhere, still cares enough to hear it. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here because silence was my mistake, and I will not make that mistake again. My name is Margaret Ann Sumney Shade. I was born in Pennsylvania, the youngest in a family of four sisters and one brother. We weren't rich, but we had rhythm. My parents ran a small but beloved dance studio. I grew up in ballet shoes and velvet costumes, with Christmas lights reflecting off polished floors. Movement was our language. Music was our breath. I wasn't just a dancer, I was a teacher, too. By the time I was 25, I had girls calling me Miss Margaret, twirling under my direction as I shouted counts across the studio. I loved those days. I loved the order, the structure, the grace. Life made sense when there was choreography. But real life is messier than a stage. I married young, too young. Probably. His name was John Joseph Terry. We had 2 daughters together, Helen and Peg. When they were born, everything in me shifted. My world became smaller and deeper. They were the light I hadn't known I needed. Their father, however, drifted. He was the kind of man who could be in the room and still be absent. Eventually, he left. No fights, no warnings, just gone. So I became mother and father, protector and provider. I worked the studio. I taught classes. I sewed recital costumes at midnight and helped with homework by candlelight when the power was cut. I did what mothers do. I endured. And then, years later, I met David Sumney. He wasn't like John. David was educated, a Harvard man, a dentist, successful, polished. But more than that, he made me feel seen again. He asked questions. He listened. He loved my girls like they were his own. And when he proposed, I said yes because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was living. In 1989, we had a son, David Lee Sumney Jr. I remember holding him for the first time. He had these wide, alert eyes, and a strange calm about him, like he was studying the world before deciding how to treat it. I thought he was special. I thought he was mine. We called him Junior. He grew up with everything. I never had his own room. Piles of toys. 2 parents. Stability. We took him to the zoo, to science museums, to the ballet. He never lacked anything, and that was part of the problem. From the time he could speak, Junior demanded more toys, more food, more attention. If he didn't get what he wanted, he would scream, not cry scream, and David and I, wanting to keep the peace, always gave in. At first, I thought it was just a phase. Maybe he was strong-willed, maybe too smart for his own good. But then, one afternoon, he found a bird in the backyard, a baby bird that had fallen from a tree. He picked it up, and he crushed it. I asked him why. He said, because it couldn't fly away. I laughed, nervously, told my sister he had the mind of a little serial killer. I meant it as a joke, but deep down, I was scared. That fear grew over the years. He became colder, less connected. He never seemed to care about anyone else's feelings. If he hurt someone, he didn't apologize. He just stared. If he was punished, he retaliated. And still, we made excuses. We said, he's gifted, he's sensitive, he's figuring things out. What he was figuring out was how to control us. David and I couldn't see it, or maybe we chose not to. We gave him everything too much. Toys, computers, new clothes, private tutors, and the more we gave, the more he expected. He learned that screaming worked, that manipulation got results. and that love could be used like a weapon. Even when my marriage to David started to crack when the bills piled up and the studio began losing students. Junior stayed at the center of everything. He had to have what he wanted, no matter what it cost us, and we gave it, even when it cost us everything. When I look back now, I wonder where the line was. When did I stop being his mother and start being his hostage? He was still just a boy, but something in him, something vital, was missing, and I refused to see it. That refusal, that blindness, was the beginning of my end. I used to believe that love real, patient, unconditional love could fix anything. I thought if I gave my son the stability I never had, if I protected him, supported him, poured everything into him, he'd turn out all right. He'd become kind, decent, whole. But I was wrong. I didn't realize I wasn't raising a boy. I was raising something I couldn't contain. Junior never grew out of his tantrums. He grew into them. In elementary school, he began bargaining for everything. He wouldn't clean his room unless we promised a reward, wouldn't do homework unless there was money or gifts involved. He didn't ask, he demanded. If he didn't get what he wanted, he smashed things, slammed doors, screamed like a wild animal. And David and I, we surrendered, every time. We convinced ourselves that keeping peace in the house was more important than conflict. But peace built on fear isn't peace, it's quiet violence. And the silence in our home grew heavier by the day. As our marriage began to crumble, I was too busy trying to keep Junior from falling apart to notice that I was crumbling too. David and I divorced in 2001. No big fight, no dramatic betrayal, just quiet disintegration. The home we'd built, the finances, the future, the illusion of safety dissolved with the stroke of a pen. I was broke. The dance studio I'd given my life to was losing money. Students stopped coming. The bills piled up. I couldn't afford rent, insurance, electricity. Closing that studio felt like amputating part of myself. I took a job folding clothes at a retail store. Long hours, low pay, constant exhaustion, and behind every plastic smile was a woman drowning. And Junior, he didn't change at all. He still demanded new shoes, a new phone, weekend trips. He acted like nothing had happened, like the life he was used to was still there, waiting to serve him, and worse. He believed he deserved it. David, even post-divorce, kept sending him money. He still called, still gave in to guilt. I did too, though we lived apart. David and I were tethered to each other by a boy who knew how to manipulate us like chess pieces. He played us against each other back and forth, one house to the next, draining both of us dry. We should have seen it, or maybe we did, and were just too ashamed to admit it. In 2008, Junior got into George Washington University mathematics major. I remember thinking, finally, he'll grow up. He'll be away from home. He'll learn structure and self-control. David and I scraped together what we had left. Tuition, housing, allowance, everything. We couldn't afford it. Not really, but we were too desperate not to hope. 2 years later, I went to visit him in Washington, D.C. What happened on that trip haunts me to this day. Junior told me he'd done something, hurt himself. He said, I panicked, rushed to his apartment. I ended up hurt too. When Helen called, I told her I'd slipped and hit my head. But the truth was, I was terrified, shaken, and trying to protect my son from something even I didn't fully understand. I was admitted to the hospital, so was he. They placed us in separate rooms. The staff said nothing. Doctors wouldn't answer questions. And deep inside, I knew something violent had happened. Shortly after that visit, the university expelled him. repeated misconduct, skipping class, aggressive outbursts, disrespect toward faculty, everything we had hoped for the discipline. The change had collapsed. He hadn't grown. He'd decayed. Junior returned to Pennsylvania, back and forth again. Between David's house and mine, no job, no school, no purpose, just more demands, more manipulation, more quiet domination. And then came 2015. That year, everything shattered. Junior was 26, still unemployed, still living off us. That day, he asked David for money, a large amount, to fund a vacation. David told him no, not out of cruelty. He simply didn't have it. Junior refused to accept that. Instead of walking away, he escalated. He screamed, threatened, then attacked. He beat his father not just one blow, but many, knocked him down, struck him again and again. Neighbors heard the shouting and called 911. When police arrived, they found Junior straddling his father's body, still punching. David was hospitalized, critical condition, brain hemorrhage, spinal trauma, bruising. He would never walk again. He would never live independently again. He was transferred to a care facility where he'd remain until his death. Junior was arrested, but the charges: aggravated assault, not attempted murder, not what he deserved. He made bail. He got out. Again. David was too physically broken to testify. And once more, our son slipped through the cracks. I should have walked away. I should have cut ties, accepted the truth, but I didn't. I couldn't. I still believed he could be saved. I still loved him. I still protected him. And I didn't realize I was digging my own grave, one excuse at a time. I knew something was wrong with my son. I had known it for years, but I never had the courage to say it out loud, never dared to speak the words. He's dangerous. How do you say that about your own child? How do you admit that the person you gave life to might be the one who ends yours? I kept telling myself, just give him one more chance, one more shot at turning things around. Just give him something to believe in, a purpose, a path, anything. And then Junior told me he'd joined the Marine Corps. He said he was in a special program, filled with discipline and honor. I believed him. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't demand documents. I just wanted to believe, because belief, even in a lie, felt better than facing the truth. He grew bigger, stronger, towering over 6 feet tall, his shoulders wide, his muscles bulging. He trained every day, walked like someone who controlled the room without a word. He wasn't a little boy throwing tantrums anymore. He was a man who could break you if he wanted to. He spoke with his eyes short, cold stares. If I asked too much, he barked. If I suggested anything, he dismissed it. And I, foolish as I was, thought this was just the strict nature of military life. I thought he was finally trying to rebuild himself. I didn't know I was living with a time bomb. In November of 2016, I was asleep when I felt hands around my throat. I jolted awake, couldn't breathe. He was on top of me, strangling me, not yelling, not crying, just silent, focused, intent. My son, my baby boy, trying to kill me. I don't remember how I fought back. I don't remember the exact screams or the kicks or the panic. I only remember one feeling: raw, suffocating terror, the understanding that I was about to die, in my own bed, at the hands of the one I had loved most. Eventually, he let go, got up, walked away, went back to his room like nothing had happened. I was shaking when I called the police. When they arrived, I still had bruises around my neck, dark marks on my ribs. I told them the truth, that my son had tried to choke me in his drunken state. that he mumbled something about it being a Marine Corps technique. The officers documented everything. They arrested him. And what did I do? I asked the court to go easy on him. I begged them not to ruin his future with a felony conviction. I told them he was intoxicated, that he didn't mean it, that he just needed help. I defended him again. I used his lie, the Marine Corps fantasy, to justify why he deserved leniency. I said, he needs treatment, not prison, and they listened to me. Once again, they listened to me. The charges were downgraded. No serious prison time, no criminal record. He was released shortly after. But then, a truth I had never imagined came to light. A background check during the proceedings revealed that Junior had never been in the military, not in the Marines, not in the Navy, not anywhere. No enlistment, no training, no records, nothing. It was all a lie. He lied to me, to everyone. He created the image of a disciplined, reformed man just to mask the truth. He was a violent manipulator with no sense of remorse. I should have been furious. I should have shut him out forever, but I didn't. I clung to the word rehabilitation like it was a life raft. I thought if I just get him into treatment, if he gets therapy, structure, accountability, maybe he'll change. I visited him at the rehab facility. I brought him clean clothes. I checked in with his counselors. I told myself that his attendance meant progress. I thought, look at him. He's finally doing the work. But I was lying to myself. He completed the program. He was transferred to transitional housing. He got a job. And on the surface, everything looked okay. I thought we were turning a corner. But none of it was real. He hadn't changed. He hadn't reflected. He hadn't accepted what he'd done. Every step he took was a performance, a calculated act designed to reduce supervision and regain freedom. And I, desperate, broken, and still foolish, wanted so badly to believe that I let him back in. I let him close, and I didn't know. I was handing my killer the front door key. I can't remember the last time I saw sunlight through the kitchen window. Can't recall what I cooked for dinner on my final day alive. All I know is that everything felt normal until it wasn't, until everything unraveled in terrifying silence. After his release from rehab, Junior seemed okay. He got a job. He called to ask what groceries I needed. He even brought flowers for my birthday. He smiled. He said, "Thank you." And I, desperate as ever, thought, maybe, just maybe, he's finally back. I didn't know it was all just a performance. He met a woman through a dating app. I never met her. But he said things were going well. Before long, she moved in with him. At first, it seemed fine. Then I started to hear whispers. People said he was controlling her, monitoring every phone call, locking her out of her devices, demanding obedience. Eventually, she saw the truth. She saw him forging my signature. She saw him using checks in my name to buy things, pay bills, steal. When she asked, he said I had a mental condition and he was helping manage my finances. A lie. A bold, cruel lie. I had never given him power of attorney. I was of sound mind, fully independent, paying my own bills. She questioned him. He avoided. When she threatened to leave, he snapped. He lured her to a hotel in Atlantic City. There, for 3 days, he beat her, imprisoned her, tortured her. He strangled her until she passed out, left her alone in the dark with no food, no water. The "Do Not Disturb" sign hung on the door for 72 hours. A hotel housekeeper, likely the only hero in this story, broke protocol and opened the door. She found the woman unconscious, barely alive. She was rushed to the hospital. She survived. Police launched an investigation. A warrant was issued, but once again the system failed. Due to a clerical error, the warrant was never uploaded to the national database. Junior fled. He returned to Pennsylvania, free, unbothered, untouched. And I was home, in the house I thought was safe, in the house I let him back into. I had no idea that the man walking through my front door had just escaped a warrant for attempted murder. In September 2019, my brother, John Shade, passed away. I was heartbroken. He'd been the calmest presence in my life. We began planning his memorial. I told my sisters I'd call everyone, but I didn't, because by then, I was already dead. Family couldn't reach me. They called, texted, no answer. Eventually, my daughter Helen got a hold of Junior. He answered using my phone. When she asked where I was, he said, "She's sleeping," but it was already the next morning. Who sleeps through a family death? Through constant phone calls. She asked to speak to me. He refused. Said, "Call back later." His voice was distant, cold, off. Helen knew something was wrong. She called the police for a wellness check. Officers arrived, knocked, waited. No one answered. The curtains were drawn. Everything was sealed. But the air smelled of death. They forced the door. The house was a mess. Blood on the floor, on the walls, towels soaked in brown stains, drag marks, signs of a struggle, signs of concealment. Upstairs, in the bathroom, they found me. In the bathtub, still, cold, gone. I had been there for over 24 hours. There were deep injuries to my head, bruising on my neck. The tub was soaked with dried blood. A sickle, stained and sharp, lay in the hallway. My registered revolver gone. Only an empty ammo box remained. And then they opened his laptop. Inside the hard drive were 277 photographs, not of vacations, not of family, but of me, dead. Pictures of my body on the floor, in the tub, down the hallway. He had moved me, posed me, changed lighting, angles, took selfies. He smiled in some of them. This wasn't rage. This wasn't grief. This was art in the eyes of a monster. He had researched how to cover up murder, how to mask decomposition, how to make a body disappear. He wasn't trying to kill me and run. He wanted to keep me, keep the scene, keep the control. And then he dressed himself, put on my jewelry, used my checks, attended my brother's funeral like he hadn't done a thing. The police arrested him right there. And Margaret Ann Sumney Shade was finally given justice. When the police searched him at my uncle's funeral, they found my jewelry, the pearl necklace I wore to church, checks bearing my forged signature, and financial documents I had never even seen before, all tucked neatly into the jacket pocket of the son I had once believed was capable of redemption. He didn't resist the cuffs. He didn't panic. He didn't plead. He just stood there, silent, cold the same way he answered Helen on the phone that morning. "She's sleeping." The police took him in. The investigation didn't take long. 277 photographs, search histories, emptied bank accounts, a house soaked in blood, a body moved, arranged, staged. He didn't just kill me. He performed with me. He used me like a prop, like I was some twisted art project. He set up lighting, adjusted angles, took selfies beside my corpse, calm, even smirking. There was no panic, no regret, only calculation. He had researched how to clean up blood, how to erase DNA, how long a body takes to decompose at room temperature. He hadn't planned on anyone finding me. He thought I would disappear quietly. But I didn't. The prosecutors filed charges third-degree murder, theft, abuse of a corpse, forgery. Everything pointed to premeditation, to something darker than rage, something emptier than madness. And yet he got a deal. He pled guilty to third-degree murder. No trial, no public cross-examination, no full accounting of what he did. Just 20 to 40 years in prison, with time served. He'll be eligible for release in 2039 when he'll be 50 years old, still young enough to start over, to breathe, to walk free. My family was stunned. Helen sat in silence. Peg didn't look at him once. My sisters cried not because of grief, but because of fury, after everything he had done, after all the pain, the mutilation, the violation. It was reduced to a number. 20 years. That's all my life was worth to the system. And then he spoke. He stood in court and delivered a speech pre-written, probably coached. He said he didn't understand why he did what he did. He said I didn't deserve it. He said, I'm sorry. Sorry. How do you apologize for turning your mother into a photo shoot? How do you speak of remorse when your eyes, in every photo, were blank or worse, proud? None of us believed him. No one cried for him, because we all knew if not for that hard drive, if not for the technical error in the warrant, if not for my death being too loud to ignore, he would have kept going. He would have moved on like nothing ever happened. He used my corpse to create his masterpiece, and the justice system thought he could still be saved. After court, Helen never said his name again. She called him he. Peg left the state. My sisters stopped mentioning me in family gatherings, not out of forgetfulness, but because the wound was too raw to reopen, too damp, too festering to be spoken aloud. The house I died in was sold. They cleaned the floors, painted the walls, but my blood is still there, beneath the grout, in the scent that rises when it rains, in the corners where light never quite touches. I'm not present anymore, but my memory haunts the air like mildew. I don't blame anyone. I just regret not saying no. I regret letting motherhood blind me to the monster I was raising. I thought love meant unconditional forgiveness. I thought patience could fix what was broken. I thought that with enough kindness, he'd come back to me. But some children don't need hugs. They need handcuffs. Some children are not children. And if you're listening to this now, let my voice be the one that stays with you. Let my story be the cautionary tale you remember when you think silence is safer. Let me be the whisper in your mind that says, don't die for your goodness. I was Margaret Ann Sumney Shade. I lived, I loved, and I died because I forgave too long.